Hi, everyone. Welcome to this very special chart delineation. Once again, we're welcoming another friend of mine from the Survivor community. So welcome to the one and only John Carroll. Hi, John.
Hello, everybody.
So thanks for joining us tonight, John. We're going to go through your birth chart and a few other charts. I was just polling the crowd of who has watched any Survivor at all. I know Barbie's aware of it. Enid said she knows of it culturally, but has not watched it. Asha, I don't think you've watched any seasons, right?
I know, not recent, but I remember Survivor from way back.
Yeah, that's us. We're Survivor from way back. John is from season 4. I'm from season 15 and 20. So we're considered old school survivors, although John is much more of an old school rough survivor than well, mine was pretty bad too, but this was pretty bad. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. We can start looking at charts. And I want everyone to know this is our usual chart delineation, but it's special because we have a guest. But same thing, we want everyone to contribute your thoughts, ask questions. John is here with us to talk about his experiences and how he lives his chart. And here he is, the man, the myth, and the legend.
Many moons ago. None of that gray is in that beard.
You look exactly the same. Let's not even
Exact
pretend.
same.
So we are welcoming John Carroll from Survivor Marquesas to chart delineation here at the IAA. This is John. I'm assuming. Did you get your luxury item? I know it was massage oil. So is this your oils?
That would be the glistening of the oils and
Yes.
that green coconut oil that to keep all of the no-nos and stuff off. But yes, they had me lather up rather nicely for this particular shot. They were very pleased with themselves when they had me lay out on this. And yes, in social media, if we had that back in the day, this would have been a moment. So
I feel like this maybe we resurrect it with our meeting today. So anyway, but yes, this is one of my favorite photos of John. This is when they interview you and they set up the camera in a way so you look either goofy or cool or whatever. So they gave you a good one here. So we're going to go through tonight. We're going to look first at John's natal chart, and then we're going to look at the game chart for Survivor Marquesas, which filmed in November and December of 2001. So a while ago, but we were all there pretty much, right? We all were alive at that time. And then we're going to look at John's transits on some particular game days. So I always like to look at the first day of the game, the last day that he played, and then I looked on the internet and it said day 7. I don't know if that is the most accurate, but we'll let the kids find out what that was. And then I also have a last chart for the air date because they film the game and then they put it on TV, and playing the game and watching yourself are sort of two different experiences. All right, so let's get started. This is John's natal chart. As you can see, we have a lot of these red lines, which are squares. So we have a mutable Grand Cross. So a lot of tension and energy is contained within this one human being. So just running through the top astrology stuff, it's Gemini sun in the 12th house. We have a Sagittarius moon in the 6th house. Cancer is ascendant. The ruler of the ascendant is the Sagittarius moon. Sagittarius moon, it's out of bounds. The final dispositor of the chart, Mercury in the 12th house, also out of bounds. And then the Venus in Cancer is also out of bounds, parallel to Mercury. When I first met John, I played Survivor, but I never watched it. And we met socially, 2 people. And then as soon as he started talking, I was like, this is all one person. You've done all of these things. This is the most incredibly complex person I've ever met. So brilliant. Sitting to talk with John is like drinking a glass of champagne. Like you are effervescent, right? And so we can see there's so much air here in the chart, all of this Gemini energy. And then, so who wants to jump in with any immediate observation to my budding astrologers?
I'm still absorbing the chart as I've actually put it up on a simpler form to focus on the closest aspects. And those are interesting because that really picks up the Sun and Mercury square Mars. And when you think of something like Survivor, Mars is the planet of action, of taking action. Mars is exactly square to the Sun. So this is someone who probably can't stay still.
So John, I'll give a little background for him. John, at the time of playing the game, which is what we're going to be talking about as we move on, but of course, we've all lived since 2001. At the start of the game, John was in the military. That's correct? Yes.
Yes.
Registered nurse.
I was out of the military, but yes, I had been in the military as a medic. I was a registered nurse, and then I think you're going to go where I had just started law school, and I was there for 3 weeks when Survivor called, and then left to go do the show, and then went back and finished law school to become a trial attorney.
He combines these two. So he's a nurse and an attorney and does medical law. Also, in and around the time of the game, was doing a lot of work with AIDS patients. There's just so much stuff. And there's been 20 years since then, right? Of all this extra
Yeah,
stuff.
20
John has a goat
plus, yeah.
farm in Nebraska. I got married, all of this stuff. But John was also known at the time of this game. So just for some context of the Survivor game, it was the 4th season of the show. And originally it was supposed to be played in Jordan, the country of Jordan in the Middle East. But it was 1 month after the September 11th event. So they changed the location. They took the location from the Middle East and they moved it to Marquesas in French Polynesia. And they were then called like Back to Beach because that was like the first was in Borneo, which is beachy. Then it went to the Australian outback, which is the desert. Then it went to Kenya. And then it was supposed to be in Jordan. So it was kind of used to like move around. And then they went back to the beach. We'll talk the game later. But yeah, so definitely the Mars squaring the sun almost exactly. And it's in Virgo, which again goes back. Every planet goes back to this Mercury and out of bounds in the 12th house. So John definitely just displays a lot of like constant energy but it sort of fans out in every direction. So definitely an athletic competitor and also a mental competitor.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say all that. I literally was running upstairs because I'm hosting a retreat for approximately 70 attorneys that are downstairs right now and was just printing out some sign-in sheets for their breakout sessions tomorrow, and then ran up here to do. I said, I'll be back. I have to do a quick Zoom and then I'll be back down for dinner and to get this thing going.
He also makes like sourdough and everything. It's like it's people in one.
I say I'm like a shark. If I stop moving, I'll die.
Well, that Mars is ruling the 5th house of all of your creative activities, and the 10th house, which is the house that says, how are you more known as? And so you are probably very well known for not only having all that activity, but with the Mercury rulership and Mercury out of bounds, of being able to think through a lot of stuff very quickly, but very detailed.
I say that a lot of people go A, B, C to get to Z. I go A to Z. You're nailing it so far.
I'm always about 8th and 12th house placements, and you've got 3 personal planets in the 12th house. And I'm also just looking at that sun-moon opposition, and I'm curious about the relationship with your mother and father, and where was your father in your life? Was he present for you?
Wow, what a great question. Yeah, so it was a tough one. So my dad was in Vietnam. And so a couple things kind of happened very early in my childhood. Number one is I think it became evident pretty quickly that they may not have had the word gay, or they're even their process, but in that. But I'm very close with my father. Born, oldest and son. And then he left when I was around 3, 4 to go to Vietnam. And then he came back a completely different person. To describe for many years is I lived in a home that had a man in it who was called my dad, but was not a father to me in any way, shape, or form. And for much of my life, I was very afraid of him. And it wasn't until I was deep into my 20s that a lot of healing came from that. And then I got into my 30s and 40s. We became very, very close, of cancer. This is 2012. 2012. So, and my mother, I have a complicated relationship where I was a parentified child. And so I had a very close lover relationship, if you would call. I was like the substitute spouse, but in a way. And then I grew to resent that because I realized I was a pawn in the relationship between my mom and my dad. So I was aligned with my mom, and my late sister was aligned with my dad. And my sister fell in the cracks between everybody. So we basically had kind of a war in our house without it actually being a war. It was like who the were. It was only later when we grew up, and it happened as adult children, and what parentified child is. And so each one of us was parentified by our opposite sex parent.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
They have,
Just looking at, can you guys hear us?
Yes.
yes, go ahead. This is Luke, by the way, Luke and Lydia. This is John. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, John. How are you? The one
I'm
thing
great.
that stands out to me in what you just described, John, is that you're born under a full moon. And often what I find is that the parents are at loggerheads is between them in some way. And that parentifying sort of relationship you're talking about would definitely be part of that. Nearly like a psychological abuse, not just the full moon, but there's other things in your chart. So yeah, it's not a situation to go through. I see that a lot with depends on how things line up, but I see that a lot with other people. You've also got you've had to learn to be strategic. Funny you get up in Survivor, and how to navigate your own way through things and control them in some ways. And that is into me by what we call a T-square in your chart to your sun, which means you're all constantly having to identify who you are. So that was a little bit of feedback. But someone else can work on this one. But during that Survivor game, he had Saturn conjunct the node, and that's a big thing. Anyway, I'm gonna up for a bit.
Fascinating.
Does anyone have anything else particularly on John's chart? And then we can move on when
I
you're.
can see here is his angles. The first, the seventh, and the house. Those. We see him. There's no planets, right? You don't see any planets there, except in the seventh house. He does have, this, but he doesn't have a planet. So with that, it means, his will be expressed with, more quieter, and that kind of seems like what he had, more quieter, energy, work behind the scenes, and like he did like Survivor, right? Behind the scenes, that was a, work camera. And so, but I see those, those angular houses where, thing, and there's, of course, we can look at the cusp at each one and go in a little bit deeper into things. But he did say, he contracts, right? You like to work with contracts. You're pretty lucky with your contracts and doing things like that.
So I do medical malpractice, but what's interesting, you say that, is I just took on a breach of contract case that I'm absolutely obsessed with. I have done the deep dive and have literally put like all my into learning about bad faith and all the different elements of contract law. But my entire career has been on the medical side. But currently, right now, I am like knee deep. I just had a motion to dismiss against some bigwigs like 3 days ago on a contract case. And then the other thing that you were saying, Barbie, about behind the scenes. So what's kind of interesting, you saying the initial reaction was, "Oh, no, that's not right." But actually, when I took a step back, it's true, because there was a way as saying there's the way we played the game, and then there was the way the game was put on TV. And so I was definitely recognizing we were on a TV show. So I came out as the leader very much of our tribe, led us to great success. We didn't go to tribal council for 15 days. So we never lost in 15 days to lose any of our members. But all of my major work, and this is one of my regrets about my game, is the major work I did outside of the cameras, because I didn't trust them. And but it was my downfall, is because there were important moments that they didn't know about my game that was not captured because I did it away from producers. And I think if they had seen that, they might have, something changed differently. But yes, you're like 3 major in my game absolutely should have been on camera, but because I did my trust that they would rap to the other cast members, I did in the shadows. So you definitely picked up on some of what my game was like when I was there.
Well, I think one other thing strikes me on your chart, as you've talked about, and all the things that you've done is ruled by the moon, the 6th house, which if you're traditional astrology, the ascendant is like the rudder of the ship, basically ship. You're right at the helm. of the ship with the ascendant. And the person who got their hands on the helm is the planet that rules that, which would be the moon. And the moon is known for changing, being very changeable. It's in a sign, very changeable.
Mm.
And kind of a house position that says work environment, which basically would indicate to me a varied work environment that you didn't always know where you were going, but you always kind of knew wanted to do, or that emotionally you were drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And
my life has been kind of like, you see the results. It doesn't seem like a surprise, but other people are like, oh my gosh, how did you do this, this, this? And I mean, I don't answer, like people see our farm and where it started and where it's at. Their mind that two humans like spent 20 and took this dirt patch and turned it into this magnificent sanctuary with orchards and trees and gardens, all the things. I'm very much a Renaissance man. And matter of fact, this morning, we do a thing called sociometry, where we get in a group and we just start talking and we figure out who we're aligned with energy-wise. That's there. And one of the things that has been coming up for me lately, and maybe y'all could speak to this, and it made me quite emotional when I realized it. So my whole life we lined and aligned, and we had to take a body part. And I ended up being, my body part that spoke to me was I was right hand, because I've always been a helper and I've always been of service to people. And so I always feel like I'm other people's right hand, and I'm, whether by the hand, guiding them, whatever. But as I turned 60 this year, for the time, I'm actually turning that help to myself, being focused on me as opposed to othering. And so I went to South Africa in August. I'm going to Ecuador next week. And these are like journeys for myself, not for anybody else. They are for me. Whatever journey, whatever it's supposed to get out of those things, I'm literally, for the first time really in my life, doing something that's just my own path.
It's amazing. I know that trip Todd is going to. There's more people.
I will say the Jupiter, that both your ninth house, your beliefs, what sort of calls you out into the world, as well as that moon of your work environment. It's actually in astrological terms, the Jupiter that has a bit of a struggle, because Jupiter is supposed to be this planet representing the large picture, but it's in a sign that wants all the little details. But the power of that is that you can bounce both. But with those two places, it's basically, no matter what you're doing, there is an underpinning, a belief, and reach out that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Your sun, like where you shine, your like identity, and the house is the hidden house. So one thing that I also like, why I wanted to bring your chart here to my have everyone look at it, is because I do feel like even in the world of Survivor, like you're in that of early seasons where it's almost like it's just hidden away, because it's like lost media. It's like the pre-internet stage of Survivor, and things changed. Like it was pre-HD, it was pre like Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. So, those, unless people were really watching it at that time, they don't, or they're like invested and they go back and watch them. Sometimes
Streaming.
you get missed, and I'm a player myself, so it's like where the should stand on, so let's Survivor Marquesas, and we can always come back. John's chart is going to be in the center of the next few anyway, but this is the game for Marquesas. So this is because the game always begins at dawn. Okay. That's like very Survivor. They wake you up out of your bed and just throw you out there, and then you have to like go play. So 6 a.m. And here's the configuration. So this is sort of like the game. It started in November, Scorpio season. And we can just like sort of familiarize what's going on. So we have like an air grand going on that works for John with all of his Gemini energy. And then the same chart on top of John. So John's in the center, and then we have the game on the outside. So what Luke had brought up before is that we have Saturn right here conjuncting his north node. And John was known as a villain of the game. And as you know, friends of mine, I was also a villain of the game. Okay. I was on on the team. John was an early villain. So what does it mean? That means you were complex, okay? That means they quite catch you in a single category. Therefore, you become a problem. So a lot of other things going on, but this is like, so the morning game, this is where it started off for him. Got also the North Node is sort of in your Sun and your Mercury. The South Node is here with Chiron on the Moon. So we have that polarity of the Sun and the Moon being lit up in this moment. And your natal North Node has Saturn conjuncting it. So that's letting you know there's some type of big block type lesson is coming at you as you venture to play the game. And get rid of this. So do we have any Survivor fans here? No, right? This is pretty much just me and you that know it, and then everyone else just kind of knows the cultural part. It's okay. But yeah, any else chime in with anything they're seeing in this?
It's hard for me to see from a car, but I was going to say, I see that. I was going to ask John a question. John,
Okay.
how did you find health-wise while you're in Survivor? Did you have any stomach problems or reactions or other things like that?
So there was moment. Well, part of it was I invented what was called coconut popcorn. So I was the one who started frying the popcorn, and unfortunately, it's a laxative. So ate too much popcorn, and you can imagine what a disaster that was. So I did have one evening where it was a very, very, very uncomfortable. It was definitely like in the moonlight in the forest with an issue. But I'm also for getting stung by a sea urchin.
We're going to talk about it. Don't
Okay,
talk about that yet.
Yeah. And then minutes of that same moment, I get bit by I've been reaching in a rock, and a crab grabs me and splits my finger from front to back and splits it wide open. And so those were literally back to back within each other.
So let's look at that chart.
That'd be interesting to look at, because that'll be definitely something going on at the time.
Okay, yeah, there's going on in this chart indicating that things are perhaps not all that easy. You have a moon returning exactly to its moon position. You've got Mars. Mars is actually to that Jupiter and Saturn. It's just past the trine though, but it's still activating the initial start of the. It is also connected to issues of power. Was there power? I mean, it looks power plays going on.
Yeah, too. I agree with you, Enid. Totally. Were you seen like a father figure, boss figure, John?
I was I was like the leader. There's very few people who played the game who had such a command and control, but in a more fatherly leader type versus like authoritarian. Wasn't like so I still have that piece. It was always explaining why we should do something, but everybody always followed. And we were successful.
So you were the charming, nice guy with an undertone of like, I've really got to be strategic and not trust anybody.
That's exactly right. Yes, you nailed it.
1,000% correct. Yes.
Yes.
So this photograph is when John got stung by the sea urchin, which led to one of the most legendary, I think the number one thing people remember about Survivor Marquesas that even I know about. So John gets by the sea urchin, and as you can see, we have Mars with all the stuff going on, applying to Uranus, indicating accidents, and it's here in the 8th house, which can deal with like bathroom type issues. John, would you like to tell the class what happened?
So our tribe was like so successful. We had 8 of us on there, and so it even on the equator, it's cold at night. So we had like a little snuggle train, and so every night you would rotate into the middle, and then when you were directly in the middle, then you had to rotate back out. And then every night we got to work their way to the middle. So you always had somebody to your front and back, and there'd be 2 nights where you would be on the end, and didn't feel the warmth. Well, this particular night, I'm in the middle, and all of a sudden, I thought I passed gas, and I didn't. it was something different, and I had to get out of the middle of the whole group and hold my shorts together so that I wouldn't have an accident on people as I was stepping over them to get away from them. And I spent like 3 hours that and trying to clean my short. I couldn't wear them for like 5 days. It was so bad.
So I'm thinking of with Kathy and the sea urchin. So John
Oh,
gets
that
stung, but
one.
so you can't
Yes.
even remember. There's so many
Yes.
catastrophes.
Yeah. No. So what happens? I come out of the water right here, and I knew that urine with the ammonia in urine that it would potentially neutralize the sting. And so I said, I need somebody to pee on my hand. And the Republican judge came running up to do it, but he was pee shy and he couldn't do it. And so I said, is there anybody else that can pee? And Kathy was like, I'll do it. And then they did this whole montage of her basically looking like she's coming from Chariots of Fire, jumping over logs and the music and slow motion of like, I'll do it. And she gets there and right there, like I stick my hand in, and works. And then you don't know what the etiquette is like, so I just waited and she was like, all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're peeing on my hand and there's like 5 cameras on right now.
Yeah, they made a lot of it. It was very funny.
So it was on Friends, like it became like a thing. It would have been viral now, right? I mean, at this point, this would have been one of those, it would have lived on in perpetuity. I probably could have like monetized it.
I think I still can't.
I'm waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you
like
think of them as being body, and you have the South Node, and you have transiting Moon, and you have transiting Chiron. You have all these, it's like it's the itself like piling up on top.
a lot of things that go wrong. I did not include any graphic photos of because there is like some showing it. You see the relief on the man's face, and you have to think Kathy is she was all to like show up in the moment. But then I read from her, she's like, moment, I felt so proud of myself, and then I was really embarrassed. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And have to, as like in the 2000s, when John and I played Survivor, there was not really conversation. People saw what they saw, and you couldn't really like talk to them. The people who were on the show was TV, and they're talking on Twitter and telling you their version. So we were never really heard that way, and you just kind of had to what they showed. And it was really different, like energy to it. Yeah, it's like if into like this joke, that's it. That's what it is. But so yeah, that's funny. That's sort of like the new about Survivor Marquesas was someone got peed on.
Yeah,
like,
that was me.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
You got it. Okay, and then the last day of the game that John played. So another thing is like John and he beat the rival, right? So you voted out your rival on day 21, but the real opponent that you were playing in the game was yourself, right? And this is where I feel like that that like this uncontainable just energy and this mental like strategy and all of it, you got like pulled into your own. So it's like almost as soon as you beat the person who's like on your level, there's no one left for you to beat except for yourself, right? So this is this top challenge, which again, on my season of Survivor, which I played the first time never having watched it, my friend who was on, or someone in the game who I became friends with, knew everything and was like trying to tell me about this challenge. Because was this one's?
We were almost to the loved ones.
Okay.
I just missed out.
Well, there was this thing, and it's like, so this challenge is famous. Another thing about the Marquesas season is they made it like harder. Like they didn't get food in the beginning, they didn't get any like water, they didn't get anything. So John played
that's what I was talking about in regards to food issues.
Yeah,
there was something that would be causing a problem. Yeah.
So
yeah, we had no food in our season.
And previous to that, they had given them something to start, right? And so that's another thing with all of they're going on to season 50. They're all different, So yeah, friend with me about this coconut chop challenge because John, by accident, in chopping different people's rotes and eliminating them from the game, you inadvertently showed your strategy to everyone. Right. And then there was like a block of people because John had a really tight alliance that they were just dominating everything. And then the people that suddenly realized they were on the outside, there was like 5 of them for you. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big lesson I learned from Survivor Marquesas is 5 is more than 4.
Yeah. But you think like at this point in the game, you're crazy, right? The game that they play now, by the way, only goes to day 26 and then it's over. But for us, it went to 39. So by the time you're here, you're crazy. You've forgotten ever known in your life. The only thing you know is like these people. So
Into
just
power at this point because we're dominating.
And then again, it's like a tale of hubris, right? And this is another
It
reason
is.
why John became like the villain of the season. Again, we have here South Node hitting the moon. North Node is there in the neighborhood of Mercury, the final dispositor. Saturn is back from your North Node to right on top of your Jupiter, kind of ruining your day. And then I put this chart for 6 p.m. because tribal council is always sort of at nighttime. So we have the MC is his Saturn like area. So not the coziest vibes. This is the vibes for learning a lesson. And yeah, so this is how it's interesting because what I found of doing these little like postmortems on games, is John's our second contestant we've had on, is it's amazing that you can look back and pick it out, like you've watched it. They're just able, but like Luke is clocking like, oh, you didn't have food. Enid's clocking like you had bathroom problems. What's going on?
Yeah.
So
what was interesting also about this day, and I didn't realize this until like years and years later, is that how they out for our confessionals, they had pulled me so far away from the other five, that there was a good three and a group of two that we were keeping away, and I was really good at like sequestering them, just cooking and conversation and all, just always activity, just keeping them away from being able to like sit and break and strategize. Well, the producers, I think, figured that out, and they took me so far away from the game that I could see the rope boundary and where the crew was sleeping, where I was sitting, and they kept me there for like 2.5 hours. And I'm just, I'm a Gemini, so Jabber John, blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking, boy, it's kind of weird. I can see the camp of where the producers are. I've never been this far away from. And it wasn't until like literally years later, I realized, oh my gosh, they did this on purpose. They pulled me away so far, so I couldn't intervene and try to save myself and try to just keep away from each other. And so that set up opportunity during that time I was away for the three and the two to get together. So when I came back, I knew my fate was sealed.
Yeah.
Does that mean you got out?
That's the night I got voted out. Yeah. I knew as soon as I came back, I could just read the room, and I knew what had happened. And then I, oh my gosh, them pulling me away, opportunity, and my alliance was completely unwary. They had no idea what was going on. I knew when the coconut chop was happening, they were telegraphing one after the other because the other side took me out first out of our group. So I was chopped out very, very early. And Mike did chop everybody in the exact order in which we talked about kicking them out of the game. And as they were sitting down, they looked around and they were like, this is the boot order. This is what they're going to do to us. And they weren't wrong. So, but I didn't have the option to kind of do my little shuffle and get in there and do the chatty Cathy thing and cook and, hey, go get some water, go get some lime. Let's do da. Let's, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Wait, go on, Luke, go on.
Don't.
Yeah, it's interesting how Saturn in the witch house.
Is it I can see it
We
very
can't
well.
see it on a small screen too well.
Saturn above that Jupiter in the house.
Yep, ruining John's day. That's powers that begin to shake it up. You have to remember, Survivor. It was pretty early, and they were. I think the intention of the show in the first season was to have it be like an adventure game, and then the first winner was Richard Hatch, who was like very strategic, and he really did it, and it was such a cultural hit that then it kind of like became a strategy and adventure game. Although I think old school Survivor was very you're out there. It's an adventure. But so I think the game was developing, and they were how to do it too. So I think like having someone like John come who's like a dominant physical threat, he's a strategic threat, he's a social threat, he's kind of just coasting all the way in. They're like, oh, we can't have that.
Nope.
We gotta
like,
throw a turtle shell at him.
Yeah, like nope, we got to get out of the way and let these other players kind of. And I wondered why I do wonder is like why I've never been asked back. I think it's really interesting is considering what I brought table. And I mean, even when remember they did that 30th season book. They did the big CBS commissioned this big book of like favorite parts of Survivor after 30 seasons. And so they had them do their top 10 favorite moments at 30 seasons. So we're talking at like the 15-year mark. So your top 10 favorite moments of the last 15 years. And me getting voted out was number 3.
Well, yeah,
Everyone loves that episode. Everyone loves it. It's
They still talk about it today. The fall of the Row to 4, the fall of John Carroll. Like, yeah.
well, it was like that. This was something actually to say before by
Yes, I agree.
by the and writers.
Oh, yeah, because they're 100% get to pull what challenge they want to use at any given point. And they designed this one specifically to lie wait, unwary. It was a brilliant game. And it wasn't until like I got chopped that how brilliant it was. But I was mute. I couldn't say anything, and I couldn't get my alliance. They were drunk with chopping and just talking the whole thing. And I just was like wanted to vomit because they were absolutely revealing what it was we were going, to do. And I caught up a moment. There's a great clip. Part of this thing was, and I would love if you ever had the opportunity to do Boston, Rob, and Sean and myself. If you were to like our charts up, because 3 of it was against me, and it was like, and for years on MTV, like they would do the best of reality television, and me, Sean, and Rob would occupy like the top 3 or like the top 10, like 10 years. We would just like junkyard dogs at each other. And I defeated Rob, John, me. And like some things like faded in a way. When I took Rob out, what I didn't realize is he fatally wounded me in the game. And even though I lasted 3 more days, that war if he and I had gone to war like we had done, and we had found a way to align with each other in some way, we could have deep and then had a fantastic final 2 with just the 2 of us. But that's not the way it worked out. But then Rob, out of that, got to play 6 more times. He's been on The Amazing Race like 3 times. And in my heart, I know our battling and everything we did in that very first season is what gave rise. He was 25 years old. I was 36. So it's kind of cool. And he and I are now friends, and I wore him, and I'm happy with the way life has turned out. And it's kind of cool that our paths crossed in that particular moment in the way it needed to, because it was appointment television until we got voted out. Like, I mean, we were controlling.
I was going to say, I think John just described that Saturn conjunct the North Node.
Yeah.
So that means nothing to you, John, but what you just said from an education point of view of astrology, I think you just described exactly. It represents something in a positive in the long term, but it's usually a karmic connection of a high proportion. So on the show was something a bit like you were destined and meant to do, and out of it was going to be, I think Courtney jumped on it and said, there's a lot of lessons with that. And I think might have been someone else, might have been Barbie, but there's a lot of lessons. And that sort of battle channeling and someone having to lose is all about that Saturn. I don't know, I can't see it. And I think yours is in the 9th house natally, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, his is 9th house with Chiron.
I would be really interested. Yeah, to relocate his chart to that location and see where it all lines up then.
Like the birth chart?
Anyway.
That's a job for Barbie. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Think that, so Rob, for the non-Survivor fans, Bob, he's now sort of like a celebrity for everybody. He's like the big celebrity.
Who's the guy who was walking around in the nude at like...
That's
Richard. Patch.
Winner.
The first cruise with me. Took off his shirt.
I remember
tried
him.
to take off the pants.
Yeah, that's probably like, one trick stayed in 2000. Like he's tried to resurrect that times, and it just, it's like
can't get Richard's like shirt on though. Like he's gonna do what he's sort of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
stop if you ever hear this. Stop. Keep the clothes on.
Richard, I know you'll never will, so just keep going. But so for Boston Rob, he played season 4 with John, that their very first season. Then Rob came back for All Stars. He got top 2. He ended up marrying the girl who got first place. And if you notice, this game does have like Juno partnership in Leo. He became part of a couple. So then Rob came for Heroes and Villains. He was on the villains team with me, also a villain. And then he won the next season that he played. And then he was back on a season called Winners at War. And then he was a mentor. So he's been on the show a million times. But he did, his very first opponent was John, and he lost. John beat him, you know? And that is kind of the thing of that season. And then like kind of the, you know, and then it just like the rest plays. But it is known sort of as like where strategy kind of developed. You know, you play a game, like it gets more, like even doing like Candy Crush, like level 1 is really simple, 2 gets a little harder, level 3. But so like this was one of those where the strategy kind of like a little bit, survival part was a little bit harder. So we all saw John has learned many lessons. And again, too, it's like the 12th house enemies. It's like you're in a game and then you're with 16 people. So, you know, you have 15 enemies that are against you. What you don't know is that production might be against you. They like you knew not to trust them, but they're not declared as a player in the game, and they're really not supposed to get involved. Now, obviously that changes, whatever. I do think in the old school Survivor, though, they did kind of leave it alone for the part. And then we have the last chart that we'll look at, and then we can just go back to whatever with the remaining time. But this is when it aired. So it filmed November and December 2001, and then it aired 8 p.m. February 28th of 2002. So this is that chart lined up with John. And you can see, again, the midhaven is right here on his Venus. So we learn about John the nurse, you know, and how he takes care of everyone. And, you know, you're controlling people through cooking. It's like, that's a hard job. Let me say right now, I did not cook a single thing on that show. So kudos to everyone.
I was Johnny
who does.
Pots and Pans. That was my nickname, Johnny Pots and Pans.
Absolutely not. I did nothing. That was actually the worst villains team, is no one did anything. We were all useless. But so we have here too, this is conjuncting Saturn and Chiron and Pisces. So again, that theme of like John's learning some lessons here through experience, which is less than, you know, you want to go and you want to win, but like there's only one person that wins, everybody else loses. Saturn still over here in the neighborhood, ruining his day with Jupiter. And what else do we have for this chart? The South Node still sort of in that neighborhood, all of these things. And another thing that with John, that again, it gets buried, but you were outed on national television. And in 2002, the early was not the most receptive time to be openly gay. And that was not your choice to share. And again, it didn't read until, and then it's interesting because then many years later on Survivor season 3011, I don't know which one it was, but there was someone else who was outed, but we've grown to be a more sensitive society by then. So they made this huge deal of like, oh, this is horrible, blah, blah. And John's like, hi.
Yeah. I mean, there were tears, screaming, like, you know, just furious at this other person. It's not your story to tell. And it was triggery for me, for sure. It definitely triggered me. And and because, you know, I was a big time queer. I mean, like all this awful stuff. But, you know, it was
allowed.
But I'm
Totally
still living
allowed
my
to say
own
that.
life, right? And, you know, when I got outed, we had to go tell our neighbors, like we had to go tell people. People didn't know. And so suddenly we're telling family members, and then we didn't get to tell everybody. And then so there was a lot of people in my life that found out I was gay by watching TV.
36 years old.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And some of nieces and nephews and, you know, things like that. Yeah. So it was a very different time. And it's because now, you know, I'm definitely getting my flowers, people watching the show, and they're going back and streaming, and I get lots of fan mail, and that same anger comes out, and I'm like, yo, I'm good. Everybody's good. Like, it's okay. You know, it's like watching something that happened, you know, half my life ago. Yeah, you're 100% correct. You know, 20 years later when it's somebody else, completely.
That's why again,
different,
through
isn't
like
it?
looking at the astrology and looking at, what was happening back then, you see how like the world is changing. Like this happens at a certain time to a certain person at a certain point in their life. Then you live it, then you watch it on TV, then everyone responds to it. And now streaming, so it's just constantly starting fresh for someone every day. But looking at the air date chart here, we also have the transit north node is now exactly on top of your sun
And
in the 12th
also
house.
with that square to Mars. So
Mhm.
that is symbolic, almost like it was fated to to have that kind of expression and echo through.
Can I add to that, Enid?
Yeah.
And I can't see the chart too well, but is that Pluto transiting conjunct the South Node at the same time? His natal
Oh,
South Node.
transiting Pluto, no, it's past. It's past a bit a ways, hasn't it's?
Maybe that was where it was being born into. To me, that's I look at it and go, there's this, they're gonna reveal dirt on it, sort of how it's sort of,
Yeah.
and that's sort of what happened from what I can understand. That,
Mhm.
anyway, I can't see it too well, John, the chart, so I'm not going to comment too much.
Well, the one thing on the transiting for the air is the north node is at 23, his sun is at 23, his Mars is at 23. So it's
yeah.
totally lighting
That's
up.
a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically sun is identity. This is part of our sexual identity. So
And third house, where your Mars is, John, is your community and people you know. So you have to
Mhm.
like these people. But it's so interesting. Things change. And I also think like all of this, like Saturn North Node, the lessons that Saturn time. So I think that your time has even yet to come, because I do think that like we're immortalized for good or the player of this game. And like
Mhm.
you never know who's going to watch at what time.
Mhm.
And they start to see stuff. I think we may have answered your question of like, oh, why haven't they had you back? They might be a little embarrassed of how they treated you.
Mm-mm.
You know what, Courtney? I think by the time the return of this airing comes around, that might be the time they do bring him back.
Would you go? Would you go play?
No, I would. I don't. Me a year ago, I would have said yes, but I'm sort of kind of. I'm the first time I've never watched a season, so I have kind of made my peace with that. I really was disappointed how they passed season 50. And John from my season screwed over again, and they dangled the show in front of him, and he and I have been playing each other for the next one for Marquesas to come back and play. We've
Sean,
been,
by the way. This is Sean and this is Rob. These are the guys we're talking about.
yeah, those were my arch enemies was on the show. And but Sean is also going to Ecuador, and so it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of healing we might have, because we both got beat by Survivor, and in different ways. Him keep dangling the show, asking him, and then they just cut him, and sometimes they don't even tell him they're cutting him.
We do this. This
Yeah.
is what happens. You all know, because I was in the mix for season 52 as well. And I didn't really want to go. This is what happens if you play Survivor once forever, as long as you live. They're going to be like, do you want to play? Come, you want to play?
Like,
and
yeah.
you get like caught up in this nonsense.
Like another layer of surviving Survivor strategies
That's,
still at you.
It is. It truly is. It has.
Oldest person that's been on Survivor.
It was Rudy. I think he was 75.
What's the oldest person on Survivor who's been 75? Wow, because I can imagine the toll on the body during that time, and particularly your time, because it was an extended period. They're starving you, and everything else.
Guy who's the oldest twice, 2 times, and he was the oldest both times.
He played twice. So sitting here today, because I do truly want to put me, and there are other
You'd
things
be so
I do with that energy. Yeah, I've done some with the fans and with survivors, and we did a version of Traders, and I won, and I was the oldest person playing on this online with other reality people from the challenge and Big Brother and all that. And I played a completely different game. I played like at the time I was 59 when we played. But Boulder, I had to play, played just a psychological cerebral game versus, but I'm like, I've still got it. I mean, if I could still go, if it was online, I'm like, I'm still, still got juice in there. So we'll never know.
Once a player, always a player. You'll be.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to, if it all, your moment might be ahead of you. That would be my guess.
I agree with you. I think I was going to say it may not be in the form of having to go to the game. It may be some sort of big something else they do, like of some kind, and they have some other game within it. Something that's going to bring you the attention of the public, make you out to be the villain once again, but in a way that is what's the word for it? It's like a recompense. You're going to be villainized even though you're the villain. But that makes sense. I just see something like the case. Barbie, what was that little comment?
11th house Saturn, was it?
Yeah, and it's in the groups. That's right. So
what's the degree of Saturn Luke was asking before?
There at we can't see the screen, Courtney.
His natal Saturn is
at the aspect
at the time of the airing.
The transit.
No, the transit, it's 8. The transit is Saturn is 08. And there you go.
Of what sign?
Gemini.
Gemini.
Gemini, yeah. And so control growth going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it may not be for a little while yet.
So that's what I for the group. And then now, anyone has anything else, any observations or anything they want to add or look at?
Only thing I was going to say is that this year, John, you mentioned you're heading overseas to do stuff for yourself from a travel point of view. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, it shows up astrologically as Jupiter is now what they call transiting in your first house. And that is about an expansion of the self. And it's a bit like a spiritual pledge and understanding. So you're right, this next 12 months will be very important for you to grow as a person and get more in touch with yourself. And you'll do that through that travel. It may also be that you find that the experiences you're expecting to have and what you do have are completely different. And some disappointing compared to what you think, and others really awakening in some respects. That'd be my comment. Now I'll leave it up to others.
Well, actually, that's reinforced by the secondary progression that's I just checked for this year's secondary progression, and the moon is right now at 9 Pisces, which means over the coming year, it will be contacting the Saturn in the 9th house. Again, travel, discovery, lessons learned.
So let me ask you this. So part of the reason I'm going to Ecuador is, so for quite a while, I've been working on a book, it's fiction. And it's a book that it won't stop talking to me, but I have a block. And so I've done an enormous amount. It's called The Tomb Reader. It's about a 14-year-old girl who's able to touch certain tombstones, and she's transported into the last week of that person's life. And while she's learning this gift, she discovers a serial killer is responsible for some of the people that are in the cemetery. And so her name is Quinn. And Quinn and all these, Stanley, who's the villain, they won't stop talking to me, but yet I am struggling to get the story is living in my head. But then when I go to start writing, I get distracted because of this whole Renaissance Gemini. I have so many shiny objects of skills and talents that drag me down. Today I'm going to do X. Tomorrow I'm going to do Z. I'm going to figure out how to build this. And meanwhile, these characters are screaming at me to just settle down. So part of this going to Ecuador is I want to come out on the other side of this and complete this, because I do believe that this story, and the 3 books, there's a total of 3 books. I just look at the pattern of my life. I know if I can do what I've done with other parts of my life and do it with this book will be just a game changer for my life. But I'm struggling I've even drawn the characters. So they're up on a wall. They talk to me and I've got a little shed that's a art studio, but I'm trying to figure out, why am I blocked? Why won't I do this? And the characters are I'm dreaming about them. They're talking to me in my sleep.
John, it's just timing. It's just they're going to come to you when they're ready.
that Gemini chatter, probably.
Yeah.
I got a Gemini rising, so I relate to the chatter, 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 chatter. Can you slow down? Yeah.
Mhm.
You remind me a bit of my son, actually, who was born in 2001, and he is full moon, and he is gay, and it's very different times, but still he's got a lot of Gemini, and he always likes shiny things, doesn't he? He's very distracted.
I was explaining to Lydia the other day.
He wanted to write, but he's distracted by
It's like
money
there's
and
too many things that have
shiny things.
Yeah, next shiny light over there. I'm going to go, oh, what's that over there? I said, it's not like Dory, but it's a bit like Dory, but with intelligence and a memory. So,
100%.
oh, well, look at what's over there. Let's go. Off they go. So one of the things, my advice to any sort of Gemini Cancerian person, because you're living through what we call opposite to where Saturn seems to rule, which is in Capricorn, is that time is your friend, not your enemy. And just remember that. So sometimes things need to typically Cancer rules fertility. You can't make a baby. You can't have 9 babies make a baby in 1 month. You need 9 months and one woman to make a baby. So sometimes it just has a period that it has to go through. Your frustration is that Saturn you're feeling. So maybe it's just a time thing, and sometimes what you're deciding to do is change my location. That may help a lot. What I would probably suggest is astrology-wise, someone here, and I don't have access to it at the moment, should actually have a look at what rules writing for John, what planets are strong, and then go to a location that's on that on the planetary line. Normally it's Mercury to write, which is your ruling planet. But
is it 9th house to publish, and there's a Saturn in there natally?
So it's time. And you might even find that you get published by an overseas or a foreign publishing house rather than something that's American.
And I see Pluto and Uranus there in your natal chart in the 3rd house, and that's all communication and writing, isn't it? And Mars. So any wonder you're attracted to stuff. It's like death and dying, and the mysticism of it almost.
The next 2 years of progressions brings Mercury to exactly conjunct the sun in 2027, and Jupiter exactly square to Venus. So I think it's going to be coming to fruition over the next 2 years.
It really does feel like it. Like this Ecuador trip is a intentional thing to address. There's a lot of things, right, you can do when you go to this Ecuador and ayahuasca and plant-based medicine, all of that. But really what I'm taking there is I want to finish this book. I want these characters to come to life. I want to see them 3-dimensionally. I want to see that because I do think that it's all the parts of me and my life and the drama and the trauma and the ups and the downs and all that are working their way through all of these characters in one way or another. And I'm just obsessed by it.
Could be a movie too. So it sounds like it could be a successful movie, but I don't know if that is indicated on the chart. Being a very
see it more of Netflix, a Netflix like anthology.
I've just put your details into my astrocartography, and your Mercury line runs through India, Delhi, Jaipur, close to Mumbai. Have you thought about going to India?
It's so funny that you say that because I've always said that is the last place I would ever want to go. And now I'm just looking at it going, oh my God. Literally, I'm so open to going anywhere. And I have just this thing in my head is like, and so now I'm like, well, shit, maybe I need to be looking to go into India. Like, because
correct me if I'm wrong, John. Are you going to Ecuador to do a bit of an ayahuasca session and get into trying to be a bit more transcendental in some ways?
100%. Yes, I basically said whatever. I'm not going to say no to anything. So whatever rituals and the shaman wants us to do, because I'm not on any medications. I'm very, very healthy. So I'm wanting to bust through this paper wall. And plus, I want to also have this authenticity with Quinn when she has. Here's the other thing, and we haven't talked about this, and maybe you can tell me about. I have been an intuitive off the charts. I'm an empath. Off the charts. I'm a medical savant. I'll give you an example. When I was in law school, I was in a class. My trial partner was in the class. When I looked at him, when I looked at him, the word thyroid would come in my head. I'd look at thyroid. It was a joke. during the whole class. So I stood outside of class, pulled him aside as he walked out the door, and I said, I just have to ask you something. You're going to think I'm a weirdo, but I just have to ask you because I've never had anything. Well, actually, I'll take it back. Lots of these things have happened, but and not in that kind of way. And I said, is there anything going on with your thyroid? Does that make any sense to you? And I remember he just looked at me and he's like, you're joking, right? And it's something to that effect. And I was like, no. And he's like, my mom was just diagnosed with thyroid cancer and my sister's being worked up right now.
Wow. It's
You know,
powerful. Wow.
So that's psychic impressions. So what I said in some respects is you've got 3 planets in the 12th house, which is a very psychic house, one of them being his sun. So therefore you're going to have that ability to be psychic. And that sun is in a T-square that I think Pluto and Mars and Saturn, I'm born in a similar generation to yourself and I get it. But your 12th house sun means that you're everything that you do comes to you from that sort of intuitive factor. And I was nearly going to say to you, through life, the person that goes, and it's probably the hardest thing you deal with is logic versus gut instinct. Always going to be right, and sometimes you'll talk yourself out of it because that's your mercurial self, your Gemini self that goes, that can't be right. No, and you logically talk yourself out of things when you sort of knew all along.
It's also the medical
correct.
system too.
That's right. So therefore, and the other thing is deep down with that 12th house sun, you're born to be, you could say, a servant to others. You always look after and care for and nurture other people. And your ruling planet of the ascendant, the moon in the 6th house, is about service to other people. So it's a bit like the more you give, the more you get back.
I'm literally this morning with our group when we were talking about the right hand. That was how I described my life, is I'm everybody's right hand. And I've always been a helper. And one of the things I always say is when I enter into a group of whatever, I just say, look, I just want to be of service, whatever it is that I can help or do. And also in my life, there's this saying, it's called just tell John. And whatever it is, whether it's legal, medical, somebody mistreated you, there is something doesn't work, you need an answer, how does that computer, like whatever, it's just tell John or just ask John. And that's just been my station in life. But now I'm at this phase of my life. I've so enjoyed being of service of people. It has been so rewarding. At that point in my life, I can look backwards and see all the touches and all the joy and all the gifts I've been given back because I've been in service. And I know that there are times that the universe has come to my rescue when things needed to at the last second. I always would joke, well, I just took out 30 guardian angels on that one. And so it always psychically has always been there. My mom calls me there's a golden child, having insight, gift of discernment, gift of tears. There's always been these things said about me, but I'm at this phase in my life now where it's like, it's always been so outward that I'm actually taking some time to provide that same care, I guess, is to turn it onto myself. I'm so busy outwardly doing those things that I'm now just saying, and part of that is like, how do I take care of myself and get this book done? How do I give that to myself so that I can give it to the world or whatever it is that I'm driven, for whatever reason, I'm driven to put this book out there in the universe. And I don't know, maybe it's for success, maybe it's for just the enjoyment of it. I'm a visual medium person. So to be able to see my work on a television screen or on a movie screen, that also drives me to be able to see that through. So
someone said
sounds
something
like
about
you're being guided too, like you said. Yes, I can see it as a movie. I want to read your book already because it's right up my alleyway. I read a lady called Barbara Erskine, who is a historian who writes about one timeline interfering with another and people going into this almost other world in times gone by. And she uses her historian sort of stuff through that, but very metaphysical. So that's why I go, oh, write it already. But I think of, like, I was a lover of the Dead Zone, if you remember the Dead Zone
for sure.
Series. Love that.
We shared something in the chat about the vertex in the fifth house, pointing to creativity, self-expression, and things that open your heart. So your legacy might be the book or the movie, something you've created. And there is Neptune in your fifth house as well.
Yeah.
That's film. So that could definitely be basically. I've known John for a long time now. I don't think there's a single thing in the world that if you decided to do it, you wouldn't be able to. I say that with so much confidence. And the thing about this is now you guys all know 3 survivors, me, John, and Leslie. And the community of people, everyone is so complex and dynamic. And like John, I feel is really at the top of that. And then the 12th house theme of just being hidden away. And then the Saturn of squaring everything, delaying everything, and you want to be in a hurry, but there's always this block that it leaves me waiting to see, well, what's next? Because you're Mr. In progress. No matter what you do, there's no end. There's going to be another whole thing. He'll be like, so now I invented a spaceship.
Courtney, is John's Mars opposite Saturn? I can't see from here.
Yes, it is. So his Mars is 23 Virgo. It opposes Saturn at 17 Pisces, which it's conjuncting to Chiron and at 22 Pisces. So he has the mutable Grand Cross, and there's a lot of action around 23, 22. The moon is 28, Mercury is 26, 17, and then Pluto, Uranus are 11, 13. So by sign, it's a Grand Cross, but then by degrees, there's also things that are a little bit tighter than others. And so John, he knows a little, enough about astrology, but this is like a picture of a snapshot, right? But everything is moving. So another layer of reading is if it's coming closer together, applying, or if it's moving farther apart, separating, blah. So with something that's so complex, like your chart, you really have to get in with the archaeology to see the directions of everything. But Mars opposes Saturn, 3rd house, 9th house.
Well, see, that's, to me, sometimes that Mars-Saturn is, and I've got a daughter with a very same T-square, that Mars-Saturn opposition and T-square to the sun. And they are very driven people. You can't sit still. Ultimately, you've got to be doing something. FOMO, if you fear of missing out on something if you haven't done it. And the other thing is the amount of work and energy you put on your own body can be hard. Have you ever had any other issues, any sort of back problems or anything like that, where you've actually caused any dramas to yourself in that respect physically? Because that also happens.
So not my back, but I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different orthopedic surgeries. So
there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Both Achilles were done, 2 meniscus, hips are great, wrist twice, both shoulders, multiple fingers. I always joke that I should have my name in front of one of the orthopedic exam things because I've had a lot of orthopedic. Yeah.
Well, that's the fact that sun of yours, that sun in the 12th house, the same thing that makes you quite psychic, also is the house of hospitalization. So that's where it's pointing a lot of its energy. And that doesn't surprise me. The other thing I was going to say with it is, was the sun Mars. What I seem to feel like with people, and this is a metaphor, you might feel that life, you're constantly driving around with your foot on the brake. So you always feel like life's slowing you down, even though you need to get there faster. It's like this, it's got to be done yesterday. And the more you push that feeling that it has to be done yesterday, life will constantly put little delays in your way to teach you the biggest horrible lesson of patience. And most people hate it. I'm one of them, don't worry. So we all like to get things done in our own time and when we want them done. But in your case, you might find that all of those energies are all interrelated.
Well, and Mars right now is in Sagittarius, so it's going to be getting into your 6th house of health. So just over the next couple months, be aware that don't push too terribly hard, or you might wind up having to recover.
When are you off to Ecuador?
I'd leave a week from today, the 14th.
Okay, so that'll be all right. So you're going to have, so just be mindful of what you eat.
Okay.
Right.
We're in Alaska, so.
I know that's another scenario, but I won't go there. Just because Mars coming up to hit your moon sometimes can be things like you end up with a stomach virus or you end up with some sort of bug or something like that. So just be mindful.
Oh, good to know.
You're going to have Uranus and Gemini, right? It's going to hit all your planets basically at some point in the next X many years. It's just going to be going back and forth and light up everything because you have everything in the same modality, right? So this is going to be an interesting chapter of your life. I see nods. So does anyone want to chime in on that? Well, I guess we'll just.
Although at right now, actually, a number of things probably are feeling like they're releasing because we finally have some planets changing sign instead of hitting all that 27 to 29 degrees.
So
It's a
Saturn.
little while before Uranus decides to go and play. But actually,
how long are you in Ecuador for?
2 weeks.
Sorry, Enid, I didn't mean to. 2 weeks.
no, that's okay.
Just be mindful, Enid. He's going to be there while Mercury's retrograde, by the way.
Oh, that's true.
God,
So
Lord.
just basically figure that flow with whatever's coming on and don't let yourself get too terribly stressed.
Make sure you have travel insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. The Ecuador trip, it's a survivor trip, yes?
Survivors will be there. I was very, very conflicted about whether I wanted to go. I had
Yeah, I
committed
didn't
to
go.
say
I'm not
yes.
going.
What's that?
I'm not going.
I thought about it, and then when I was struggling with it, really was, until 2 days ago, and then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 days ago, all of a sudden, I just like whatever that block was suddenly just lifted, and I could just see that I probably should go and not worry about who else is there or why they're there or what they're doing, and just focus why I'm going, and just
You have to
pretend they're not there.
You have
Just
to
go there
report
for myself.
back. I'm curious because I declined the invite, but I'm definitely tuned. I wish there was like a show about it. I'd like to see all of this. I pay. But Josh is right. Make sure you're insured. Make sure. I know you have like 25 backup plans. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. So Barbie
Don't be-
has to go.
Take
I was
care,
gonna say,
John. Thanks for letting me sit in and learn a lot about you. This is awesome. And
Barbie
Barbie,
has
appreciate it.
a class,
Thanks,
but thank you
Barbie.
so much for coming. And we won't keep you much longer, but thank you, Barbie, for coming.
Bye-bye.
And we'll see you next
Thanks,
time.
Barbie.
See you, Barbie.
I'm
See you
needing
next
to
week.
go too. So thank you so much,
All right.
John, for agreeing to do this. This
All
has
right,
been
bye.
fun. I
Enid,
hope you
thank
found
you.
it useful.
Bye, Enid.
Thank you so much.
And I was just going to say, John, don't be afraid of the Mercury retrograde. It might be the best thing for you having to go within to find out what it is you want your book to be like.
Well, there you
So,
go. Okay.
because Mercury retrograde is always about, you're basically going within, or just, it's not the time to be writing, it's the time to be processing and reevaluating. So,
And
in
it's also-
essence, sorry, keep going.
It's going to be in his 5th house.
That's right. So,
So that's
it'll be a good thing. So it's
Yeah.
timing wise is not a problem. The only thing with Mercury retrograde, the actual travel, just be prepared, give plenty of time and be prepared that there could be delays for different reasons. So don't leave yourself the last minute to get somewhere. Always give yourself a bit of extra time.
Awesome.
Otherwise you might find yourself missing flights or something.
How long is Mercury in retrograde for?
Only 3 weeks. And it starts, I think, maybe even tomorrow. So literally you're going to be there for that period. You might be coming back just as it comes out of retrograde. I can't see it from here. Can someone have a quick look and tell us when Mercury comes back out? But at the moment, it's what they call in its shadow period. So it'll start, well, actually it's not the shadow period, it's going to go retrograde soon, and then it'll go backwards, and then it's going to come out of its shadow period. You might find that it's during this whole process that you get a lot of stuff down on paper, or in a computer, about what your characters are going to do. I think the process you're choosing for what you're doing it for will work well. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. Just be like Ash just said, make sure you got some health insurance. I think with Mars in your 6th house. The other thing I was going to say, do you have any allergies to things or allergies to food? Do you have any sensitivities to fish?
No, I'm good on the food, but I'm allergic to every grass that's out there. So I take allergy medicine every day just because as a kid, my seasonal allergies were horrible.
That's your moon in the 6th house. I've got the same placement. I'm allergic to everything. So
Yeah.
I thought maybe it might have been food, and that's why you cook. I tend to like to cook and do the food because it's easier for me to cook, and then I don't have to complain that someone put something in it I react to.
That's funny.
It's retrograde till the 29th.
And I come back on the 30th.
There you go.
Wow.
So your timing's right on.
You know what?
I thought that when you said.
Everyone is gathering to process their turmoil, and it's like a Mercury retrograde, and it starts in Sagittarius, goes to Scorpio, and then comes back. So it's like they're going on a trip to dive underneath to all the Scorpio grievances. So I'm definitely curious to hear how that goes. We'll have to have a little catch up after and get all the hot goss. But anyone have anything else to wrap up, and then we'll let John get back to his people downstairs.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks very much, John, for coming along. It's been awesome.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
take care.
I'll definitely let you all know how it goes too. Bye,
Thank you so
That'd be
much.
great.
Enjoy Ecuador.
I will.
Thank
You
you
can
for
always come
coming
back.
in and joining us, and thank you to everyone who showed up to contribute. Hi, Robert. I haven't seen you. I didn't see you on the chat, but thank you for being here. And John, have a wonderful
Bye,
trip,
Robert.
and we'll all catch up soon. I'll catch
Okay.
everyone up on what happens. All right.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Hey, John.
Thanks, Courtney.
Bye. See you, Courtney.